Some cities are just dots on a map, but every now and then a city has a life story. It's born, it rises to power, it creates legends, and sometimes it becomes a myth. Today, we're diving into the biography of one of the most legendary cities in all of history, Babylon.
It's a pretty big question, isn't it? For Babylon, the answer is this incredible story of ambition, of law, of faith, and maybe most importantly, how it transformed from a physical center of power into a powerful symbol that still echoes today.
So, let's rewind the clock about 4,000 years. We're in Mesopotamia, modern-day Iraq, what we often call the cradle of civilization. The great Sumerian civilization is crumbling, hit by climate change and constant war. The whole region is in chaos, really just a giant power vacuum waiting for someone to step in. And right out of that chaos, a new power starts to bubble up. This is the origin story of Babylon, its journey from a pretty small, overlooked town to what would become the heart of an empire. Now, what's so fascinating here is that Babylon wasn't starting from scratch. Not at all. It literally rose from the ashes of Sumer, but it was smart about it. It absorbed Sumerian language, their religion, their way of doing things. It was less of a fresh start and more of a really, really strategic takeover. And, the name itself tells you everything you need to know about their ambition. Bab-Yalim, which became Babylon, means the gate of the gods. Right from the get-go, this city saw itself as the cosmic center of the world, the one crucial link between us, mortals down here, and the divine up there. So, how do you make a claim like that stick? How do you convince the world you're the center of the universe? Well, Babylon did it by building its entire identity on three absolutely massive pillars: a game-changing legal code, a centralized state religion, and architecture that literally reached for the heavens. This right here, this is the famous mission statement from Hammurabi's Code, the world's first really comprehensive set of written laws. It was framed as this divine gift, all about protecting the vulnerable. Sounds pretty noble, right? But the reality, well, it was a little more complicated. Because that famous phrase, an eye for an eye, it came with some serious fine print. It only applied if you hurt someone in your own social class. The whole code was built on a rigid hierarchy. So if a noble poked out a commoner's eye, they didn't lose their own eye. Nope, they just paid a fine. Justice was not blind. It saw your social status crystal clear. So at the end of the day, the code was so much more than just a list of laws. It was a brilliant piece of political propaganda. By carving these laws into stone for everyone to see, Hammurabi was sending a message. My authority comes straight from the gods. So if you challenge my law, you're not just challenging me, you're challenging the divine order of the universe. And speaking of the gods, Babylon's leaders pulled off maybe the greatest religious rebranding of all time. They took their local city god, a pretty minor deity named Marduk, and gave him a massive promotion. They actually rewrote their entire creation myth, the Enuma Elish, to make Marduk the star, the hero who creates the entire cosmos. The political message was unmistakable. If our god is the king of all gods, then it only makes sense that our city is the rightful ruler of all other cities. And they made all this ambition tangible with their buildings. We've all heard the story of the Tower of Babel, right? A symbol of human pride getting smacked down. But the real thing, the actual Etemenanki Ziggurat, wasn't about defying the gods at all. It was about connecting with them. For Babylonians, this massive structure was a sacred ladder, a meeting point where their priests could climb toward the heavens and speak with the divine. Of course, no empire lasts forever. But Babylon's fall was just as important as its rise, because as the physical city started to crumble, its power as an idea, as a symbol, was just getting started. Okay, this is the key date, 539 BCE. This is the year the Persian king Cyrus the Great conquered Babylon. And it wasn't some huge, bloody siege. It was a relatively peaceful handover. But it was the end of an era. It was the moment Babylon stopped being an independent, world-shaping power. But years before that happened, Babylon had set an event in motion that would ultimately seal its symbolic fate. After conquering Jerusalem, the Babylonians forced the Jewish people into what we now call the Babylonian exile. And this was a time of unimaginable trauma, but it was also a period of intense cultural and religious transformation. This experience is what caused the big shift. For the exiled Jewish people, the physical city of Babylon became an idea.
It morphed into the ultimate symbol of worldly corruption, of arrogance, of oppression. And through their sacred texts, which were being written and compiled during this very period, the city of Babylon became the Babylon that we know from the Bible, a powerful, enduring metaphor for a fallen world.
So, for centuries, that's all Babylon was, this powerful biblical symbol, a name in a book whose actual location was lost to the desert sands. But then, everything changed. At the turn of the 20th century, archaeologists like Robert Coldways started digging in modern-day Iraq. And all of a sudden, the myth became real again. Massive gates, ancient walls, forgotten palaces, they started rising from the dust.
But the greatest treasure they found wasn't gold or jewels. It was clay. They unearthed tens of thousands of cuneiform tablets. And these weren't just boring royal histories. This was the stuff of daily life, legal codes and religious myths, sure, but also astronomical charts, business deals, and even personal letters. People complaining about their neighbors. These tablets are the actual voices of a lost civilization.
And what do those voices tell us? They tell us that Babylon never really went away. We owe so much of our modern world to them. The whole concept of written law, the way we measure time, a 60-minute hour, a 24-hour day, that's them. The 12 signs of the zodiac they mapped out in the stars, yup, Babylonian. These are echoes of their world in our daily lives. Which brings us to a really powerful truth, I think. A city built from brick and mud can fall apart. But its ideas, its stories, if they're written down, they can achieve a kind of immortality. Babylon survived because it took the time to write its story down. And that leaves us with one final thought to chew on. The Babylonians left their mark on hardened clay. Thousands of years from now, when archaeologists are sifting through the digital dust of our civilization, what story will our records tell about us? What are we leaving behind?